Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? It is 11 o'clock in the PM. It's going to be later next week. I'll tell you guys what time it's going to be for the following Bond film. But I am here again to talk more James Bond. I'm loving life. It's my favorite day of the week. I'm calling it James Bond Tuesdays now. That's not going to be the name of the series. That's what I call it unofficially in my own time. It's the day where I can just de-stress from work. You know, if I've had a terrible day at work, if there's other stuff going on, if there's other stresses, if there's other things that I need to get done, I know from that 2 hour to 2.5 hour window, I'm just going to be sitting in that cinema with my nachos because that is the one snack food that is acceptable in the cinema, or popcorn, actually. Actually, let me know what snacks you get in the cinema. I'm curious. And I get to just sit and watch a James Bond film. And tonight, of course, as you've seen from the thumbnail, as you've seen from the title, we are going to be talking about You Only Live Twice, the 1967 film directed by Lewis Gilbert. The first of his 3 James Bond films, actually. He would also later go on to direct The Spy Who Loved Me, which, it's certainly one of my favorite James Bond films. I think it's a lot of people's favorites, actually, certainly in the pantheon of best James Bond films. And Moonraker, which I love, which is, I don't know. I'm going to have to re-rank these, I think, once I watch them all again. But I love me some Moonraker. I think Moonraker's fantastic. But I know some people may not rank that as highly as others. But what's interesting is, you watch this film and then you watch The Spy Who Loved Me. And The Spy Who Loved Me is basically exactly the same film as this one. Almost identical, apart from, the Japanese setting. And Moonraker, which, this movie also contains space. So, Lewis Gilbert, just play to your strengths. And this is going to be a really fun one to talk about, actually, because You Only Live Twice is probably, I love this film. It's so great. And, this is probably the one, although I'm quite a fledgling James Bond fan, I'm fairly new to the franchise. This one I actually do have some early memories of, which I'll discuss in just a second, which I'm not sure if I talked about on my earlier reviews that I did on the other channel when I talked about James Bond. Before we dive into this one, obviously, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and live streams. Next week is going to be very, very busy for content. I will say that. So next week, not only will we have On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which I actually may as well bring up now, while we're on the subject. So On Her Majesty's Secret Service review, that's going to be Tuesday the 24th of May, a week today, at the slightly later time of 11:30 p.m. So that's definitely going to be one not to miss. It has its favorites. For some people, I think it's easily in their top 3. And there's definitely going to be a lot more talking points on that one now based on No Time to Die and all the callbacks that film has as well and the legacy of the film. That's going to be a really great discussion on that one. And the day after, in fact, on the Wednesday, we've got the new Top Gun film out. Now, I won't be at the midnight screening for that one because obviously I'll be doing the review for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, so the two would probably clash. Well, actually, they almost certainly would clash in time. But I will be going live for review at some point on Wednesday next week for Top Gun Maverick. It would just be nice to never have to see that trailer ever again. I get it attached to every single film, and I just never want to see that film trailer as long as I live. I also might do a watch along. I mentioned this last week, actually. I'd quite like to do a watch along of the first Top Gun film, so I might do a thing where we can all have a watch party or something of the original Top Gun film to prep us very nicely for Top Gun Maverick. And then, of course, Disney Plus is back, isn't it, with a new Star Wars show. So Obi-Wan Kenobi will be streaming, I believe, next Friday. So I'm actually away on Friday and Saturday, so I'm going to have to work something out there when I can get a review out. But nonetheless, we will be talking about Kenobi. Make no mistake of that. And also, you can follow me on Twitter, too, to get more information about when I go live for all of these shows and all of these, films and TV shows that I'll be talking about. Follow me on Twitter at Hobbit Fan Editor. I'm posting a lot of James Bond content on there recently, but I'm so in-depth in the James Bond stuff recently, and I'm loving it week to week. Whilst you're at it, we've got some people in the comments right now. Let me know what you think of You Only Live Twice. Is this one of your favorites? Maybe you don't care for it all that much. Have you seen it on the big screen also? Anything regarding James Bond and, obviously You Only Live Twice, do let me know. And I pose this question every week. Let me know what your favorite James Bond film is. Maybe it is You Only Live Twice. I don't know. And also let me know who your favorite actor to play James Bond is. Oof, right, that is the preamble out the way. Carl says, when I'm at View, I always have Doritos, chili heatwave nachos. So bad for me, but so good. Absolutely, man. You know what? I was actually quite good tonight, I must admit, because I had a big dinner before I went out. But there's something about getting to the cinema, and this is why I'm so broke, because I keep spending money each week. I think of all the money that I could save if I didn't buy snacks at the cinema. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to go for a large nachos tonight. I'm going to go for a small nachos tonight. So the actual quantity of the nachos is exactly the same. You just get one dip as opposed to three. So it was like 50p easier on the wallet. So, you know, was there any point in me going for a smaller one, in all honesty? But you've got to get something when you watch a film, especially when it's a film you know you love and you know you're excited for it. I don't know. I find that I can't connect with a film unless I've got some food on the go. Anyway, random tangent there. You Only Live Twice. Let's get into this thing then. So this film, this is probably like my third time seeing this film beginning to end, but this one I just have like distinct memories of as watching when I was very young. I couldn't tell you the age, but I remember seeing it. It was on TV and it was towards the end, and I think my parents were watching it, and I think I kind of walked into the room and I sat down and I probably caught like the last bit. I knew of the James Bond character, but I'd never properly at that time, I don't think anyway, watched a James Bond film beginning to end. I don't think, maybe I'd seen Casino Royale at that point. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure this was even before I watched Casino Royale. And I kind of caught it from the reveal of Blofeld towards the end of Donald Pleasance. You know, when he turns to the camera and you get the full reveal shot of him, and he's like, "You only live twice, Mr. Bond." That line and that image of Donald Pleasance as Blofeld, as that character, just stuck with me in my mind. You know, and if people are ranking Blofelds, which, you know, we probably will, especially when we come to next week as well, when we have Telly Savalas's take on the character, which is actually a take on the character I'm really looking forward to seeing again. Because On Her Majesty's Secret Service I've seen twice, but for some reason, like, my memory's still hazy on some of the performances in there. So that one I'm very much looking forward to, because honestly, I think Telly Savalas might be my favorite if I watch it again. But there's something about Donald Pleasance in the role of Blofeld in this, and just the image of the character. And as you know, I think, Carl, you mentioned this last week actually in your comments towards the end of the stream, the impact that Austin Powers has had on kind of your perception of these earlier James Bond films. And the Dr. Evil character, certainly with the image of, you know, clearly based on Donald Pleasance's take of Blofeld, I think that's helped sort of maintain the iconography of that villain. And not only that, but of course, when you get to Christoph Waltz's take on the character from Spectre and No Time to Die, at the end of Spectre, when he's caught in that helicopter crash, they do give him kind of like, I say signature scar on his eye, but I'm pretty sure only Donald Pleasance has that scar. I can't remember if Telly Savalas has it, but I'm pretty sure it's just an exclusive, you know, exclusively to Donald Pleasance's take on the character. They even brought that back. You know, so even for modern audiences, reintroducing that character, he's not bald-headed, but he does have the white cat, and, you know, he does have the iconic scar on his eye. And I think that was actually something that Donald Pleasance lobbied for with his character, and I really appreciate that. You know, he came on as an actor, and I mean, Donald Pleasance is a fantastic actor, whether it be, you know, in Halloween or definitely The Great Escape as well. You know, wonderful character in that film. I like that he had so many ideas for the characters, and I think his ideas actually went above and beyond what you actually see in the film. I know they shot a different actor originally as Blofeld, and I think they said he felt too much like, I might be paraphrasing here, I believe they called him a benevolent Father Christmas, which is a great description for any actor's performance. They get Donald Pleasance in, and he says he wants to give the character like a hunch. He wants to give him a limp. He wants to give him like a lame hand. And he had all of these, you know, like crazy physical ideas for the character. And you know, it's great when an actor can bring that on board. Maybe that would have been too much, or maybe it would have been too much of like an Igor character, you know, this really disfigured kind of character. But nonetheless, you know, they still carried over some things that they probably came to a compromise with the scar on his eye and everything, but it is a very distinctive look. And I love that, you know, watching it again, you really appreciate that build up to the reveal of that character. Now, an argument could be made, when you do actually get to Blofeld at the end, they don't really do much with the character. And after watching it again tonight, I can kind of see that. But nonetheless, I think that Donald Pleasance Donald Pleasence's performance is so great. And I think that you still do get enough from that build-up of the character that, if you have been following the James Bond films, from beginning to end at this point, the reveal of Blofeld's kind of a big deal. He's always been this in the shadows character, or you've seen him from the waist up, or you've just seen like an extreme close-up of his hand stroking the cat. You've never seen anything else. And even this film delays the reveal. You have those great scenes of him with I think it's number 11, isn't it? The femme fatale character in the film. Helga Brandt's character, number 11, played by Karen Dorr. Love that character, by the way. We're going to get onto her character in just a little while. But the bit where he activates the trap door and she falls into the piranha pit, you still don't see Blofeld. There is kind of a questionable line delivery from Blofeld, I will say that, when he's like, "Kill Bond now," and that seemed a little bit wonky. But yeah, I have a real appreciation for Donald Pleasence's performance in this film. Could they have done more with his character at the end? Yes. Does it get a little bit mired in the classic, storming a base and, an army coming in? And it's kind of like the end of Thunderball, actually, and I guess technically Goldfinger, where you have like an army that just comes in and there's a running gunfight and there's grenades and there's explosions and there's people flipping through the air. It would have been nice to maybe get more of a sit-down talk with Bond against Blofeld, and obviously you do get that in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is why I'm really looking forward to watching that film again and maybe picking up on more of those parts of the film again. While we're on the subject of Blofeld, this is another reason that this is probably one of my favorite James Bond films as well. It's weird. It's probably one of my favorite James Bond films. I think this is easily one of the most tightly written James Bond films out of all of them. I love the Japanese setting. I love James Bond films where he's darting from country to country and, he's traveling the world, basically. I've got a lot of time for that too. And it's great to see all those exotic locations, but I actually kind of like the intimacy of this one. It's more or less exclusively set in Japan for the grand majority of the film. And I quite like that because it's a fascinating culture. And I actually think they do make use of the culture as much as possible. We see so many different types of landscapes. And it's wonderful, and I think the theme just really works, and it's exotic and it's different from what we've seen in any of the previous James Bond films before. But while we're on the subject of Blofeld, I want to talk about this character because another reason that I love this film is that the allies in the film are so great, so great, and I couldn't wait to see Charles Gray's take on Henderson. And the reason that I'm bringing him now is obviously because Charles Gray, in 2 films' time, will go on to play Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever, which, I love Charles Gray. He's fantastic. And even his take on Blofeld, from what I can remember as well, it's very campy. It's very different. But Charles Gray is such a fantastic character actor in everything I've seen him in, in the 2 James Bond films he's in. Rocky Horror Picture Show, of course, as the narrator. The way he can contort his face and his expressions and the voices and the personalities he can play, the physicality he can bring to the character as well, of course, with this character having the limp and the stick. Charles Gray is just phenomenal. And I don't know why, but Henderson's always stuck with me as one of the greatest Bond allies that he meets in the field. And he might only be in the film for like a couple of minutes. It's not that much at all. And then, of course, he gets stabbed. There's that moment where he backs up against the tent and he just kind of stops in mid-conversation and he freezes, which is a little bit corny. It plays for a good reveal, though, when Bond goes up to him and then, you find that he's got a knife in his back. But, Christopher Lee, if you've seen the behind the scenes of Return of the King, I don't think Christopher Lee would agree with that. Is like, do you know what sound a man makes when he is stabbed? He doesn't make any sound in this, Charles Gray. He just gets stabbed and he just stands there awkwardly, which is a bit strange, but he's great. And actually seeing this on the big screen, I swear there's a bit where Charles Gray sits on the bed and then he kind of stands up, and I swear for a split second he looks directly at the camera. He's sat there, he's looking at Bond, and then I think he looks at the camera and then he looks past and then he gets up. I swear it happened. I might have to watch it again. But this is why I love the big screen experience. You pick up on so many different things. Actually, while I'm talking about the big screen experience, there was, shot compositions and everything in this, cinematography, the way the camera moves, things that I've never really noticed before, but I really got to take in on the big screen. Some of the camera work's just and shot composition's fantastic. A shot that I've never even paid any attention to before in a scene that is fine, but again, I've never really paid attention to. I thought was now one of the coolest scenes in the film, and it's the scene where Bond is with, I think it's Aki who is with at that point, I believe. Ooh, I might be getting the name mixed up. I'm pretty sure it's Aki. Maybe. I'm not sure. But he escapes the like the docks. He's by the shipyards and he makes this escape, and there's all these like henchmen and workers like waiting for him. One tries to ram him with a forklift truck, and then you've got all these people and there's a gunfight and everything. And he makes it to the roof, and there's this beautiful crane shot that just tracks Bond, and Bond's like a little dot on top of the building. And it's just this one take, and you see like all these hordes of bad guys chasing him on top of the rooftop. And you see him just like chaining combos together. He's like running away from him. He's turning around. He's picking up a stick. He's like smacking it over one's head. He's like punching one, and he's running. And it's all from this like one shot of like this crane shot. It's beautiful. Never noticed it before. And that shot's just like stuck with me throughout the whole film now. So that was fantastic. Some of the shots specifically when James Bond gets married as well, to Kissy, that whole thing's beautiful there, like the costumes, the music as well in that bit with John Barry. I love how he brought that oriental feel and that Japanese feel to the music as well, which I think was really important, and just adds to that culture. It adds to the feeling of the film, and I think that's what makes this film so unique as well, is that Japanese feel to it. So that music there, I mean, what more can you say about John Barry? I mean, the score's fantastic, but that piece of music there, I'd never really zoned in on that bit of music before. But it's at the scene where Bond's waiting to get married, and you've got all those people coming up the stairs, and it's like he's been told that his bride to be has a face like a pig, and you've got all these people coming up, and it's like, oh, is that going to be his wife? No. Walks off, and then another one comes up. Is that going to be his wife? No. And then obviously this beautiful woman emerges as the third one. But that piece of music there is fantastic. And of course, my favorite one, I think I've mentioned this, well, every time the song's played in one of these James Bond films, I think I've mentioned it on one of these live streams. Bond steals the Lecter, or Bond takes the Lecter, I think it is, originally from Russia with Love. It probably has different titles, for each corresponding film, but it's the same theme. Some would argue it's kind of like the secondary James Bond theme, and I absolutely think it is. It plays when he first takes off in the little Nellie. It's just a wonderful theme. And I keep thinking I would love to hear that theme again. And actually, currently at the moment, I'm working on a fan edit of the Daniel Craig James Bond films. Specifically, I'm starting with Quantum of Solace and No Time to Die. I know this is a really weird order to do them in. And I've been thinking, would there be any place to place Bond Takes the Lecter, that piece of music? Would that fit the Daniel Craig films? And I don't think it would. I think it's too of its time. I think the orchestration of it's too fun and kind of whimsical and adventurous, and I don't think that matches the Daniel Craig films. But if you guys have got any suggestions where you think that piece of music might play well, let me know, because I'd love to try and experiment and try and put it in the film. My copyright's a weird thing with fan edits. I was going to maybe try and share some scenes that I'm working on, some like short scenes, and put them on my channel, but I don't know what the copyright overlords are like, and I don't want this channel to get taken down, so maybe not the best time for it. But if ever, if I do finish it and I do release it, I will let you guys know, because I need, the Hobbit fan edit I was working on for 8 years. I needed a break from it, so I'm doing some of the Bond films, because I'm just kind of caught up in Bond hype at the moment. But yeah, the John Barry score, like, what more can you say? It's just, he knows exactly the right times to play the James Bond theme. While we're talking about the little Nellie, let's go to that scene, actually. I'm going to take a quick sip of wine. And do I pour myself another glass? I don't know. No, we're going to have a break. The little Nellie scene, this, again, was another reason that I was so looking forward to going to see You Only Live Twice. With a lot of the other James Bond films, I know sort of generally if I like them or not, or if it's one that I'm not too keen on. But in the likes of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, that's a film where obviously I've seen it a couple of times, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing it again, because some of it has kind of slipped out of my mind, and I need to catch up with some things. but so many elements from this film have stayed with me. You know, I mentioned last week thinking, is Thunderball the one where he goes to the health spa, or is that a different Bond film? And I couldn't remember. This one, you know, I pretty much remembered everything from it, give or take. And the little Nellie scene, it's bloody brilliant. It's, you could argue maybe it goes on too long. You could maybe argue that it has no point. I think it has a point though, because Bond's, you know, scoping out the area, he's doing some reconnaissance, he's doing spy work, and he's trying to find out where this secret base is, like, you know, where potentially these you know, these ships could be taken to, these spaceships, you know, and everything, when they'll be like snagged, and they know that it's in the you know, the Japan area, but they don't know whereabouts it's from. So you could argue that it's relevant to the plot, but it is an extended action scene. But that, when the James Bond theme kicks over that, and the little Nellie's just so cool. I completely forgot that they kind of build the little Nellie right in front of James Bond as well. We get Desmond Llewellyn back as well, who's always great. You know, it is wonderful to see. And when he says, send for little Nellie and her father, or something like that. I think he says something like that in the film. And then, you know, Q comes in and it's brilliant. And they build the little Nellie right in front of him. I thought that was so cool. And it's, you know, it's a distinctive look. It's one of the most iconic James Bond vehicles in a way. I don't know if it often gets overlooked, though, in the Bond community. I don't know, because everyone tends to go for the cars. You know, you've got the Lotus, of course, you've got the Aston Martin, and all the different variations of that, and a bunch of the other cars and everything like that. But I don't know, does the little Nellie get brought up in Bond conversation quite a lot? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. I don't know. But, you know, it's bright yellow as well. It gets that great action scene in there. And it's just different, you know, it breaks up the film, and it's really kind of unique to this film. You know, again, I've mentioned that word a few times, uniqueness. It's just brilliant. Let's see, other things to mention about this. Well, we've got to talk about, you know, the production design in this film as well. Ken Adam, who has worked on, you know, the previous Bond films as well. But in my opinion, he really outdid himself with this film, you know, going sequentially. The whole secret volcano layer, and again, that's the Austin Powers thing, isn't it? That's got stuck in my head as well, but it's just fantastic. They actually did say how big this set was. I'm going to try and find it real quick, if I can. I'm just skimming through the behind the scenes here, but it was immense. I think they said you could see it from 3 miles away or something like that. I think, let me just do a quick little search throughout the file. Here we go. Yeah, so of course they built it at Pinewood Studio at a cost of $1 million, and it was 45 meters, 148 feet tall, and it could be seen from 3 miles away. That is incredible. And they really showcase and they really shoot this set very well. You get those wonderful wide shots of it where you can just take in the whole thing. And I actually kind of equated it to Tracy Island from Thunderbirds. And I actually did need to make a point of finding out when Thunderbirds originally came out. Let's see. Oh, God, no, not the 2015 version. Ugh. 1966. Okay. So that's very interesting. So Thunderbirds released 1 year before the release of this film. Did that have any impact on it? Maybe. I don't know. Potentially. But for some reason, that whole volcano layer, and I think I mentioned this last time when I did my review on this film, I don't know if there was any merchandise on this film. With Thunderball, I mentioned there was the board game and everything like that, and perhaps there were some other things as well. But this, for good reasons, actually, this kind of looks like a toy set. This looks like a play set. I could imagine, you know, like this little miniature thing with a monorail that you could push around and a little helipad, and maybe you've got like a little toy helicopter or something. I don't know if that's ever been released. If that's been released, I'm guessing that probably fetches for absolutely loads now, especially if you've got it in the box. But if that wasn't a thing and that wasn't a toy, why wasn't that a toy? I would have loved that as a kid. If I'd have grown up watching this film as a kid, I'd have been all over that. I'd want the play set. I'd want the action figures. I'd want everything that goes with it. I think that would be so cool. And the fact as well, you know, it had a working helipad and it had a working monorail. And as I said, you know, the director and everything, director of photography, they shoot it so well. And you really get the scope of this thing, you know, when the rocket's in there. I'm guessing some parts might have been a miniature and everything like that. But when it pulls back to that wide shot and you've got all those extras running around on it, and you know that that was actually built and that was in camera, you'd never get that nowadays. You know, it'll all be CGI. And I'm not going to go, you know, jump on a soapbox about CGI versus practical. Both have their place, but it's just there's something about these older Bond films, and even if the effects don't hold up, and actually that was going to be something I was going to mention, seeing this on the big screen, there were some really ropey rotoscopes in this film that I've never noticed before. I know, like the rear projection when they're driving, and you get like the fake back. I love that. Tarantino even does that, like homages to that, specifically Pulp Fiction. And I know the intro to Kill Bill 2, he does something similar as well, I believe. So I like that. I like rear projection in films, but it's when they were on the fishing boat. It's when they're going to check out the cave. Kissy mentions that they saw a woman go in there in a boat, and then the boat came out and she was dead, and they held a funeral for her. And Bond says, "Right, well, let's go and check it out then." And when they're getting in their fishing boats to sail there, it cuts to a close up of Kissy in the boat, sort of smiling at Bond, and the rotoscoping around her and the rear projection was terrible. But it's only for a few seconds, and with these older films, especially 1967, like, I get it that they're not going to get all these actors to the location half of the time, or maybe these could be like pickups or something, or shot at a later date. If they can get it in a sound studio, film them in front of a blue screen, they can do that. So there were a few bits like that stuck out to me. But then again, most of the other James Bond films have kind of had that too, but this one really stuck out, and it was almost like you could kind of see the blue outline around them still, just a little bit. But just small things that I noticed. Again, a few like ADR flubs here and there where you can see their mouth moving very differently from the dialogue that's being spoken. But I have such a high tolerance for stuff like that with older films, as I've mentioned countless times, that it's all part of the charm. And I appreciate the heart and the effort and the everything that went into this film, and all older films alike, really. Nowadays, everything's digital and it all sucks. And I promised myself I wouldn't get on a CGI soapbox, so I'm going to get right off that soapbox before I start going down a whole rabbit hole there. Carl says, was this the film where Sean Connery and the producer's relationship deteriorated to the point where he refused to act if they were on set? I'm sure I heard that somewhere. I'm not sure specifically about refusing to act on set, but I think there's probably some credence to that, definitely, Carl. This was the one where, Connery retired. He said that this would be his final role of James Bond, and it was for one film. And then he came back. And then, in 83, I think it was, wasn't it? Never Say Never Again, which I know technically isn't, I know it's not an Eon Bond film, but it's still kind of a James Bond film in many ways. But he was done. He was done with this, and he made it abundantly clear during filming he was done. This was going to be his last one. They were already kind of like looking for a replacement, probably during the filming of this, to get geared up for the next one. He made it abundantly clear. I think filming in Japan as well, I think he was getting stalked. I think because he was, a huge name, not only a huge name, but a huge imposing figure as well. Certainly walking throughout the streets of Japan, a guy like Sean Connery sticks out, no matter how much Japanese makeup and wigs and tan and eye makeup you put on. We'll get onto that bit in the film. Oh god, that bit's hilarious. That you'd never get to make that in a film now. Christ almighty. We'll talk about that in a second, because that was really funny. But yeah, he was tired of the publicity and everything that came with it, and kind of probably just not having a life, because I mentioned like the turnaround for these earlier few James Bond films. It was Dr. No the next year, From Russia With Love the next year, Goldfinger. And then wasn't it the next year after that was Thunderball? Then there was a 2-year gap between Thunderball and this one. But even still, that, because not only have you got to prepare for the role, you've got to film it, then you've got to publicize the film straight afterwards, and then you'd be pretty much going in straight into the next one. That's going to be tough. And I know he's getting paid a lot of money, and you could say, oh yeah, this poor entitled celebrity right here, but he probably wanted to move on to other things. And I think he mentioned as well that he was finding it very difficult to get other acting roles, and he was kind of towing the line of becoming typecast a little bit as James Bond. So that was another factor as to why he wanted to get out of there. So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he was refusing to act on set. But you can, and here's the thing, like, I love this film, and I think it's one of the best written and tightly written James Bond films. And Roald Dahl did the screenplay. We'll talk about that in a second as well. But you can see that Sean Connery is having none of it. He is so checked out of the role. And it's a shame, because I think if he kind of had a bit more of that swagger, and don't get me wrong, like, he still brings it, like, he's still Connery's Bond, but you can really see that he's kind of phoning it in on this one. And it's just a bit of a shame, because I think if he really had that verve for it, that spark that he had, if you go back to, From Russia with Love and Goldfinger, if he'd have captured that lightning in a bottle attitude that he has within that film and brought it to this one, it would be absolutely stellar. But it's just a shame. It's a real shame, because Bond does some really cool stuff in this film as well. You've got the fight scene when he goes to see... is it when he's going to see Tiger? I can't remember. He gets into... It's right after the sumo thing that he goes to, I believe. He has a fight in like an office, and I love how that office is laid out. I've just seen this film, guys, but I'm still a fledgling Bond fan here. I don't know all the names of the side characters and everything. He has that fist fight, and they're picking up the sofas and everything, and he picks up a statue in the end and clocks it over the head of the guy he's fighting. It's so great. Oh, it's when he disguises himself, doesn't he, as that guy who was sent to kill him, and he gets in the car and he gets I think it's when he's going to see Tiger, I believe. With a Sean Connery from those previous Bond films where he's really getting stuck in and he's loving the role and he's got that swagger behind it. That scene, which is already great, would be elevated all the more. But there's so many scenes in this where he just looks bored. He just looks like he's phoning it in and he's just going through the motions with it. And it's a shame. I think it's a shame like that where you can so transparently see an actor is checked out of it. Actually quite a contemporary example of this, certainly at the moment with the trial going on, is compare Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow from Curse of the Black Pearl, or even like Dead Man's Chest and At World's End in many ways as well. Compare that to Dead Men Tell No Tales, or Captain Salazar's Revenge, whatever it was called in the UK. So checked out, and obviously he was going through a lot at the time. So I do think it's a shame though, where you can really see when an actor's just not giving it their all for a role like that. I want to talk about some of the side characters. So, I mentioned Tiger as well. Again, one of my favorite allies, and he trains Bond up at a ninja school. They go and see ninjas, and it's fucking awesome. And you've got these people who are clearly martial arts trained, and they're doing all this cool stuff with like samurai swords and everything like that, and doing all the poses and everything, and the really elegant, putting the sword back in the scab. I love stuff like that. The shurikens, and when they bring the ninjas in at the end and they storm the volcano base, like, come on, and that's what Bond is. Fundamentally, what Bond was written as was, British gentleman spy. And it's pure escapism. It's pure male image, male identity, escapism. It's gunfights, it's fast cars, it's hot women. And in the case of this film, it's ninjas. Like, come on. This is like every kid's dream watching this film, like every boy's dream. And, not to just, I'm sure there's some girls out there that love Bond as well. I know some massive James Bond fans, that are women as well. So I'm sure they grew up with this stuff as well. But fundamentally, I definitely think it is like a lad's escapism, isn't it? It's as a boy, like you're just like, oh, that girl's so hot and that car's so cool and ninjas are cool and I want to be a ninja. It's all of that stuff. And that's why I love these earlier James Bond films, Now with the new ones, everything's just bleak and depressing and everything sucks. So hopefully when we get our next James Bond in however many years time that's going to be, we kind of go back to basics a little bit. But I don't think we're in a position now, certainly not culturally at the moment, where we're going to go back to those fun escapism days. I really don't want to see Bond get any more woke than perhaps it already has, but we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with the franchise, but that's why I love these earlier ones. Although saying that, there are some parts of this film that perhaps haven't aged as well as some of the James Bond films. The bit where they say that James Bond, you've got to kind of acclimatize to Japan and you've got to appear as a Japanese, Japanese citizen in appearance and lifestyle to kind of stay undercover, despite the fact that he's over 6 foot, towering over everyone. And In hindsight, it reminds me of you guys have seen Team America, right? And you know when they're sending Gary into the Middle East, and I forgot the process, but they basically give him plastic surgery. And by plastic surgery, they kind of slap a fake tan on him, a fake beard, and tie a towel around his head and call him a terrorist. It's kind of like the Japanese equivalent of that. You know, they put a bit of a tan on him. They kind of put this eye makeup on him to, you know, do the whole eye thing. The black kind of bowl cut wig they put on him. And then Connery just looks really awkward. Like he's stood there amongst, you know, probably, smaller in stature Japanese citizens. And Connery there is just kind of standing there, with his back kind of hunched like this and just looking really awkward. And I'm just watching it thinking like, God, you'd never get away with that nowadays in a film. You know, someone posing as a Japanese person like that. I actually think the last time that I've seen that in a film was Cloud Atlas, actually, where, you know, the whole conceit of Cloud Atlas is, you know, people from other timelines, other periods of history, other universes, whatever you want to call it, throughout time, and there's kind of ripples across time, and there's the same people, you know, they're played by the same actors essentially, and everything's all connected in the whole cosmos kind of thing. That's kind of what Cloud Atlas gets at. The whole past life thing maybe as well. And you've got Hugo Weaving, who's in like Asian face. It just looks terrible. I think that's the last time I've seen a film do that, and probably with how things are going at the moment, we're never going to see that again. Maybe you could argue that's for the best though, but you know, Bond is a master of disguise. What can we say? Let's see, what else can I talk about? I want to talk about Helga Brandt's character, because you guys know by now, and if you don't know, I'm going to tell you right now, I love me a femme fatale. A good, solid femme fatale character, and James Bond's got, the whole James Bond franchise has got a lot of them. Speaking of which, this is a great segue, actually. Shameless plug again to my Twitter. Go and follow me on Twitter at I can't even get my words out now. Has the wine gone to my head? Maybe. At Hobbit Fan Editor. Every week, every Sunday, and it's up there for a week, so you can still vote on it. You've still got, almost a full week, actually. I always put a vote out, a poll on my Twitter, a James Bond related poll. So at the moment, I've got who is the best femme fatale in James Bond. And I think I've got Fiona Volpe, I've got Electra King, and I've got Xenia on a top. And as well, last time I checked the voting, actually, it's level between Electra and Xenia on a top. So while we're talking about the character right now of Helga Brandt, who isn't sadly on the poll, although she is great, go and vote, because I want an all-out winner. I want to see who comes out on top. There we go. That's a terrible joke right there. Dad joke. But, you know, James Bond is full of terrible jokes, isn't he, and puns. Helga Brandt. Love this character. And for whatever reason, I'd completely forgotten this character was in this film. When Roald Dahl was given the screenwriting gig for this film, he was more or less given carte blanche with it. Roald Dahl actually read the book and was good friends with Ian Fleming. And he said that You Only Live Twice was the worst book that Ian Fleming wrote, or the worst James Bond book at that point, because it had no plot. Now, I haven't actually read any of Ian Fleming's James Bond novels, so I don't know if that's the case. But, you know, Roald Dahl, who is a master storyteller, screenwriter and everything, he's kind of done it all. It is still kind of shocking to see his name, though, attached to this film, because I think when he wrote the screenplay for this film, he actually hadn't written all that much before. I think he maybe did one film before this, perhaps. But the one stipulation he was given for writing the script was that there'd be 3 Bond girls in there. There'd be the Bond girl who gets killed off, the ally, there's the villainous one, and then there's the Bond girl that survives at the end. So he was given that. He says you've got to write 3 characters in there. And I believe the book only has 1. So he had to come up with the characters for Aki, I believe. Yeah, I think he came up with the character of Aki and Helga Brandt. Helga Brandt's fantastic. As I said, I love me a femme fatale. Any scene where James Bond is getting tied to a chair and you've got this amazing female bad guy that's just kind of, reading Bond the riot act, it's fantastic. You know, it's really good interplay. And actually, that's one of the scenes that I think Connery actually plays it very well in that scene. Now, it does seem like with this, you know, especially one film on, they're trying to capture that magic of Fiona Volpe, and they don't quite get that far with it. She is great. She is fantastic, but she's no Fiona Volpe. And, they even try and do like, the red hair again as well. Very, very similar. It seems like they were trying to, capture that magic again from that character from the previous film. She is great. She does succumb to Bond, though. She does succumb to his charms, things I do for England. That's great, though, where she pulls out that scalpel and she says, and, the Bond takes it and he just cuts like the straps off her dress at the back. Classic Bond. Classic Bond. And then, of course, she meets her demise as well. I actually think she did that stunt herself where the trap door on the bridge, or the bridge kind of gives way and she falls into the pond with the piranhas. She did that herself. So fair play. I don't know how high up that bridge was, but it's good that she got stuck in and, did it herself. Just a really great character. She is kind of that sacrificial lamb character, though, in terms of the villains, as they often are. But she ain't no Fiona Volpe, and let's be honest, not many Bond actresses are. Again, the people in my poll, Electra King or Xenia Onatopp, maybe they are. Who knows? But this is why I love it. Just the side characters. There's so many side characters. I love Tiger. I love Henderson. Helga Brandt in this film. It's just fantastic. I just love it. Who else can we talk about? What else can we talk about in this? Because I know there was something else it was on the tip of my tongue that I wanted to talk about. Well, we've got to talk about the music. I mean, I've already talked about the John Barry score, but let's talk about the main theme as well, because I'm really passionate about passionate about music in general, but especially the music of Bond. Funny story, actually. I went to the library today. Do you remember those places with like actual physical books that you can take out? And there's a music section, and in the piano music section, there is all the themes of James Bond. Well, this was written when Spectre had just come out, so it's the first 24. There's no Billie Eilish song in there. And I thought, fantastic. Maybe I can learn some Bond songs, especially because I'm in, massive Bond hype at the moment. And I opened it. I took a couple of glances. It's all in order. So it starts off with the James Bond theme, and then it from Russia with Love, Golf. And I just took one look at the manuscript paper, and I was just like, nope. Too advanced, way too advanced. So give me a few years, guys. If I'm still talking Bond on the channel at that point, maybe I'll actually get to play some of those themes. But let's talk about some. So this one actually has a lot of unused themes, which you can find on YouTube again. And I always love the unused James Bond themes, or even if I don't love them and think that it was probably a good reason that they actually didn't use them, they're still interesting to hear. Different takes, different sort of like what could have been. And in the multiverse of James Bond, maybe these themes are the main themes at the beginning. So there's two sort of like notable ones. There's actually two versions of the main one, Nancy Sinatra's. Apparently it took, in the final one that you hear in the film, that was compiled of 25 different takes of her singing that song. Apparently she was very difficult to work with. Kind of sounds like a little bit of prima donna syndrome. She'd frequently leave the studio. She'd claimed that she sounded like Minnie Mouse and wasn't happy with the take. It was originally going to go to Frank Sinatra, and I would actually have loved to have heard Frank Sinatra take on this song, but he has connections. Oh, get my daughter in. I want her career to take off. I want her to have a hit single in a James Bond movie with a massive audience at the time. So there's probably a lot of that politics going on. And, Frank Sinatra clearly had the clout to do that at that point. There's actually two versions of that theme. Now, the theme itself, I love the orchestra behind it. I love the instrumentation. I love the John Barry influence. And, the strings, when it builds, it's romantic, it's sweeping. Growing up in the 90s into the 2000s, of course, you have Robbie Williams' Millennium, which borrows the it's beautiful, it's sweeping, it's everything you want Bond to be. Now, I'm not a massive Nancy Sinatra fan. Hearing this song, this is one on my Bond playlist that I will tend to skip quite frequently. She doesn't have that, the belting voice of a Bassie, and she doesn't really have that soulful voice of a Frank Sinatra. She just kind of is Nancy Sinatra to me. So, but for some reason, watching it tonight on the big screen, and the title sequence to this was fantastic as well. I always love a good Bond title sequence, and that's kind of an event within itself. Is, you know, you get that opening scene and then you get to just relax, listen to the music, and it's usually wonderful, unless it's Madonna's Die Another Day. But we'll get to that. We're a few months away from that one. We'll get to that one, guys. But I don't know. This one just kind of hit differently for me tonight. Now, I'm not going to say it's one of my favorite James Bond themes of all time, but I kind of got swept up in it more. Maybe it's the experience of seeing it on the big screen and just, you know, taking in that title sequence and appreciating it more. I do like the kind of Oriental theme as well that kicks in it. And I think actually that theme is more prevalent in probably the other versions of the song as well. So just reading here, apparently, there was one that was arranged by, there's a version for Nancy Sinatra arranged by Billy Strange. You can find that one. But the other versions, there's one by Julie Rogers and another by Lorraine Chandler, two wildly different themes. I actually think they're both pretty good. I love Julie Rogers' voice. I love Lorraine Chandler's voice, and they're both so distinctly different. I think Julie Rogers has a much more powerful voice and a much more kind of soulful voice than Nancy Sinatra. And Julie Rogers kind of is more akin to Shirley Bassey, I would say, and would be chasing after that sound a lot more. But whilst I think that Julie Rogers' voice is much more powerful and that Oriental theme is even more present in that song, actually, which I do really appreciate and think it works very well, there's no sort of hook to the song. You know, as I mentioned, with the Nancy Sinatra theme, you've got that beautiful string section, which is kind of your main riff for the song. With the Julie Rogers one, there isn't really any kind of... I can see why they didn't use it. Granted, much better voice and, you know, bringing in more of those cultural elements of the song, but it's not as accessible, I don't think. And you could argue that's probably why, you know, jumping ages and ages on to when we get to the Daniel Craig films, when we get to Spectre, that's probably why they didn't go with Radiohead's take on Spectre. That theme, it's, you know, we'll get to that when we talk about Spectre, but that theme, when I first heard the Radiohead one, I was like, this is absolutely terrible. This is absolutely bloody awful. He's singing in this like weird falsetto and it's crap. And I'm not even a big fan of Sam Smith's one either, Writings on the Wall, but you can kind of see with that, even now, why they went with Sam Smith's one, because it's safer and it can get airtime on radio. And obviously that's a big focus as well. They want a hit single. Of course they do. They want it to be played all the time. And I think maybe these other versions wouldn't have been as accessible. I actually think there's more of a hook to Lorraine Chandler's version. You know, Lorraine Chandler, you know, big soul singer. And that's kind of got more of those Oriental elements to it. I've actually got that on my Bond playlist. I don't have the Julie Rogers version. I don't think that's actually on Spotify, but you can find the Lorraine Chandler one on there. And I love it. It's like, you only live twice, and it's much more upbeat and everything. It actually has the James Bond theme that plays in there too towards the end of it. It's great. So if you haven't checked those out, check those out. You can find them on YouTube. As I mentioned, you can find that Lorraine Chandler one on Spotify as well. It's just a cool little what if, you know, the unused James Bond themes. And I love talking about them. I love the music. I love the history of the James Bond music and the legacy of it moving forward. Oh my God, what else is there to talk about in this one? Oh God. I love the opening with the bed, you know, the fake out James Bond death. I actually thought that On Her Majesty's Secret Service was the first film where we see the Bond character get married. You know, I've always kind of said that, oh, Bond should never tie himself down, or, you know, he is the playboy, you know, he is the tragic hero. He always has to keep moving on. But of course, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is, you know, arguably probably one of the most standout Bond films. It might even be the most standout Bond film, in all honesty, in that it went so against the grain, changed the formula and was doing its own thing, was much more dramatic and much more tragic. But Bond gets married in this one. Now, granted, in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he does it for love, albeit very short-lived. And this one, he does it, you know, for honor, for his country, for business, I think she says. Business, not pleasure. I'm trying to think what else to say about this. You know, just coming up shy of an hour, and I don't want to take this, you know, longer than it needs to. There's other things in the film as well that wouldn't fly today, but it's people, again, almost sold out in this one. There are so many Bond fans coming out for these. I actually think that On Her Majesty's is pretty much sold out as well. But I'm looking around in the audience and it's always the same faces each week. So I'm loving the fact that, granted, there's not much kind of discourse going on or, chatting about the film before or after, which I'd like more of that. I'd like, as people to chat more in the cinema, maybe not during the film. Don't be one of those people that talks during the film. Unfortunately, I had two very heavy breathers next to me today, which is never fun either. But yeah, I mean, there's bits in the film as well. In Japan, men come first, women come second. And they're washing Tiger and they're washing James Bond in this kind of spa in this pool thing and doting on it. Again, it's the male image, it's the male gaze. But that's what Bond is, like it or not. And if you don't like it, don't try and change the Bond character into something that fits your agenda more nowadays, like it or not. That is the Bond character. And if you don't like it, then don't watch Bond and don't comment about Bond and find something else that's more up your alley, But, that's it. You'd never get that nowadays. But it's all tongue-in-cheek. It's all kind of, the bravado. It's the swagger that Bond is. He is the ultimate male, kind of, That's just how the films go. And in my opinion, that's how the film should be. Now, I'm not saying, we can't have more progressive characters. Of course we can. Of course we can. I love Vesper. I love Fiona Volpe, Xenia on a top. Electra King's one of the best, I think, written female characters I've ever seen in anything. Fascinating backstory to her. And of course, in the next film, when we get to, oh God, why have I forgotten her name? How have I forgotten her name? She's my favorite Bond girl. Tracy. Jesus Christ. Diana Rigg. One of the best, the most romantic thing. Pam Bouvier. Oh God, actually, she'd be in my top 3. Pam Bouvier from License to Kill. So I'm all for Bond women like that, but in these films as well, where it's just like you've got all the women falling over James Bond, and it's actually on the main poster. I think Bond surrounded by about like 8 Bond girls in the pool. It's just the image, just go with it. Have some fun. Remember fun, guys. Remember escapism. Remember you could just go to the movies and have fun? Let's bring that back. Let's bring it back. Jesus, have I said everything that I can about this? I think I pretty much have. Any other scenes that really stand out to me? I've mentioned the bass at the end. I think that's, we've covered it. I'll just bring up the comments here real quick. Carl says, I'm really hoping the new Top Gun just gives us an old-fashioned action film. Will you be doing a review for it? I absolutely will be doing a review for it, my friend. I can tell you now when I have... Oh, my torch has been on for a long time. My battery's probably absolutely dead on my phone. Oh, no, we're good. We're good. I can tell you exactly when I'm seeing the film, my friend. Once my app opens up. God, there's an app for everything nowadays, isn't there? I swear to God. There we go. Top Gun Maverick. I am seeing that on the day of release, Wednesday, the 25th of May, and I'm seeing it at 2:20. I will be out of that screen at 5 p.m., and I will be doing a review that night. I don't know the time yet. Might be 8, might be 9, might be 10. But I will be doing a review on it. Absolutely. And yeah, I've tried to stay away from reviews as much as possible, but some things fall through the cracks here and there of people that have got to an early screening of it. I've heard very good things about it, and people saying that it has kind of brought the summer blockbuster back, and it does feel like a throwback to those old kind of takes on, again, when we could have fun, as you mentioned, old-fashioned action films. And I'm really hoping it is. I'm loving the fact that the grand majority of it looks like it's filmed in camera. Say what you want about Tom Cruise and his personal life and everything, and maybe he is an absolute complete insane sociopath in real life, but he's always great with his fans, and whenever he makes public appearance, he is always great. And he for whatever, for better or worse, he always seems really passionate about everything that he does, and he really throws himself into everything. And I'd actually say he's the last of a dying breed in terms of when you think of movie star, when you think of film star, he's probably one of the last of the dying breed. I'd say that Tom Cruise is absolutely a film star. I'd say that Brad Pitt is, and I'd probably say that Leonardo DiCaprio is now as well. That real pizzazz, when you see them on the red carpet, you're like, that's a movie star. Not these like entitled pretenders or whatever like that. He's, that is a, in terms of like character acting, Tom Cruise is never that great because you see Tom Cruise, it's the name on the poster, Tom Cruise in Top Gun, Last Samurai, Minority Report, whatever it happens to be. It's always just him, but he's so charismatic, and even now, he's still kicking with these action films. I'd even argue that the grand majority of the Mission Impossible films, certainly from Mission Impossible 4 onwards, have all been better than a lot of the recent James Bond films. I'd even go so far as to say, personally, for me, Quantum through to No Time to Die, the new Mission Impossible films are way better in terms of action and having fun and that loose continuity, and they've kind of become almost the new Bond films for me, and he's still doing them. Mission Impossible 7, we're going to have a 2-parter to that, which I hope is really good. Each one's kind of upped the ante from the other one. Mission Impossible Fallout was great, so yeah, got really high hopes for Top Gun. Kind of cautiously optimistic because I adore the original Top Gun. I love my 80s films, and Top Gun is a film that, for so many years, we've never needed a sequel to Top Gun. I've never been clamoring to see, I wonder what Maverick's doing nowadays, But, if there's a story to tell, the fact that they have shot so much of it in camera as well, and that, Tom Cruise has just kind of thrown himself into it. I do think he picks his projects wisely now. And, he invests himself on what he thinks is actually going to be fulfilling to him at his time in his life and what he wants to do. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't mind a bit of nostalgia, but I don't want too much of it. The trailers that have come out, it looks like we've got another volleyball scene. We've got another scene of them singing and dancing around a piano, kind of rock and roll, rockabilly kind of piano playing again. It looks like we're going to have some like Iceman kind of tiff between Maverick and one of the other pilots. So I'm hoping it doesn't mire it. I hope it doesn't do the Force Awakens kind of thing. Ultimately, is what I'm saying, is that I don't want it to just be full of member berries, but a good continuation, kind of like Cobra Kai. I don't mind a bit of nostalgia, and Cobra Kai definitely has its fair share of nostalgia beats, but it advances and continues the characters in a believable way. So I kind of want that. An 80s soundtrack wouldn't go amiss, but I know that we're in 2022 now. I have listened to the Lady Gaga song. I must admit, I'm not a fan of it, but maybe hearing it in the film, it will grow on me a little bit more. But it's a far cry away from Berlin's Take My Breath Away. But yeah, I'm going to have to try and arrange a day next week when we can do a watch along with that. Let me know how you want that video to look, by the way, because I could take some more time on it, time permitting in my own, day-to-day. I could either just jump on a live stream like this where you've just got me and I say, right, get the film to 0 on 3, 3, 2, 1, play, and we both watch it together and I'm just kind of talking like this. Or I could do a pre-filmed one on my own, get the film and have it in the bottom corner of the film and do like a 10-minute kind of reaction video to it of like certain bits from the film. Let me know which one you'd prefer. I personally, I'm thinking a watch party. Number one, that's easier for me to edit in that I don't have to edit it. And we can watch it in real time. But yeah, let me know which one you'd prefer to watch. I think probably the one with the video at the bottom might be a bit more visually engaging, perhaps, but yeah, let me know what you prefer and I'll try and get that done before I go and see it on might be tight actually. If I do it, it might have to be Monday, but I am working late on Monday. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Guys. Don't worry. Carl says, I got to see a 5-minute preview before Doctor Strange and it was better than Doctor Strange. Oh man, I'm jealous of that. I mean, kind of on the same topic as that. And I am not an Avatar fan at all. James Cameron, sorry, not The Last Airbender. Let's be clear about this. James Cameron's Avatar, I was never a fan of that original film, but I will say, it's probably going to be terrible. It's probably going to be very pretty, and it is very pretty. It looks astounding, but story and character. But I will say the Avatar, The Way of Water teaser trailer was by far the most interesting thing of that whole Doctor Strange cinema going experience. But no, I'm very jealous you got to see a 5-minute preview, but I'm going to save it for the film. I want to see it all beginning to end, and I'm seeing it on a slightly bigger screen now. I'm not seeing it on IMAX. I would love to see it on IMAX, but just for ease, I'm going to my local cinema, but there's two types of screens. There's like the regular screen, which is still very good, or you can pay like a little bit extra and see it on something called iSense, which is a bigger screen and better sound. And I've paid extra for it because I want to feel the roar of those jets. I want to feel my chair shake. You know, I want all of those things. And God willing, I want to hear some Kenny Loggins in the film, because that guy is the heart and soul of the 80s. And by God, we need him back. Danger Zone, Playing with the Boys. God, dude, that soundtrack to that first Top Gun film is fantastic. If you left me on a desert island and I could only take 2 albums with me, actually, that's very tough. I don't know if I pick these now. If you could leave me with 2 80s film soundtracks, let's narrow it down a little bit more on the island. I would take Rocky 4 and I would take Top Gun. And guess what both of those soundtracks have? They have Kenny fucking Loggins on there. That guy is incredible. And he's still, dude's still making music. He's still available. So I'm hoping we get some. And not all of this modern crap that's going to be in the film, but Lady Gaga is a fantastic singer. I'm just not a big fan of that song. I think it's quite repetitive. But as I say, I'm going to reserve judgment until I see it in the film. It's probably going to play throughout the film like Take My Breath Away did, and it's going to be in the end credits. So maybe it'll hit differently once we get to that. And hey, we get to see a very amazing looking Jennifer Connelly as well. It's been a while since I've seen Jennifer Connelly in a film, so it'll be nice to see her back too. Carl says the preview was in IMAX and it was so loud my ears were ringing when I left the cinema. Oh boy, are you planning on seeing it in IMAX? I'm guessing the answer is yes. Or do you value your hearing and you don't want to go deaf from it? Yeah, I don't know. Seeing it on IMAX would be brilliant. I would love to see that on IMAX. I really would. But my eye sense is plenty loud enough. It's not as loud as an IMAX, but it's still goddamn loud. When I went to see Tenet, was that 2 years ago now, wasn't it? Was Tenet 2020? Yeah, pretty sure it was. I've lost track of time, guys. But the gunshots in that film, and I went to see that on IMAX as well, were deafening. Sounded like someone was opening fire, someone had put a gun right next to my ear and pulled the trigger. That's how loud it felt. So yeah, I definitely think it'll be the IMAX experience. And I hope, well, number one, I hope the film's good, and number two, if it is, I hope it does well. And as I mentioned, the positive for me is that I'll never have to watch that trailer to that film ever again, because I'm done. I'm so done with it. They've released about 4 trailers for that thing right now. Every single time I go to the cinema, no matter what film it is, and as Odeon always loves to point out before the film starts, all specially chosen for this film, actually. They really need to change those pre-trailer adverts, by the way. They've been playing that same guy's voice, that same shtick for years now, and they really need to change it because I'm so done. But no matter what film I go and see, all specially chosen for this film, everything that's chosen is Top Gun Maverick. And I'm not going to say it's putting me off from seeing the film because I am really looking forward to it, but God, I've seen those trailers way too many times. Carl says my years of listening to rock music have ruined my hearing anyway, so IMAX all that. Hell yeah, man. I love it. And I love knowing that you're into rock music now. This is such a recent discovery for me, and it's really cool. But yeah, I feel you, man. I feel like I need to respect my hearing more. When I go to my band practice now, I always put earbuds in. So I'm always good with band practices, but for some reason I never do it when I go to gigs. I'm actually off to a gig this weekend. I've got tickets for Europe, Foreigner, and Whitesnake. All 3 are playing on the same night in Birmingham. So I'm deciding whether to take earbuds for that or not. But when I'm in my car, it's kind of like an image thing as well. Like, I want people to hear what I'm listening to. I feel like I'm in a music video every single time. So when I head off for the cinema every Tuesday to go and see Bond, I put my Bond playlist on. I crank my volume up to almost full. I pull off the drive to the James Bond theme. And I'm thinking, if I keep listening to things on very loud volumes when I don't necessarily have to, I'm going to really regret that in later life. And if I do, I'm going to miss things like this beautiful thing and my guitar and actually listening to music. So I probably do need to respect my hearing a little bit more. But it's rock and roll, you know. If you're not playing it loud, it's not good music as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I am probably going to have to bow out now. Final thoughts. I've kind of gone off on a tangent again. Final thoughts on You Only Live Twice. Love the film. I think it's brilliantly written. I love, the Japanese setting to it and how that works into the music as well. It's a great escapist James Bond film, and how people say, oh, Goldfinger kind of made the formula of the Bond franchise. This one kind of did to a point as well, I would say. From the secret base and the gunfight at the end. I mean, I know kind of we've had that with Thunderball and Goldfinger, so maybe that's not necessarily unique to it, but maybe it's just because I know that that's kind of a repeating thing when we get to, Moonraker, and certainly when we get to The Spy Who Loved Me, which, as I mentioned, were all by the same director, so very similar films, but all great in their own way. So it did kind of set the foundation for that. We get the reveal of Blofeld, and whether you think he's the best depiction of Blofeld, that's up for discussion, but it is a pivotal moment. So I love loads of the aspects about it. Chief among them, the allies, the femme fatale character in the film. The other Bond girls, Aki's fine, and the scene with the I didn't mention this actually, with the poison dripping down like the strand of string or whatever he's got, the wire. That's a very tragic scene, But that being said, like Aki and Kissy, who he gets married to, they don't get loads in the film. Aki's kind of cool though. Aki's like the agent who's with him in the field. So when she dies, that just really sucks, And again, it's that the tragedy of the Bond character, isn't it? That all the women around him keep dying and all the people close to him keep dying, which is why he's a fantastically tragic character. So those elements of the films I really like. The one thing that does kind of let it down just a little bit is that Sean Connery just looks completely checked out. He looks ready to leave, and leave he did, of course. He left straight after this one, but then returned with only one film in between. But we're not talking about Diamonds Are Forever. That will be in 2 weeks' time. I'm actually kind of looking forward to going to watch that one again, And I know it's one of the worst, and it is. But now I've seen it a couple of times, and I know it's one of the worst. I'm actually looking to just go and watch it as like a, guilty pleasure kind of film. I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing Charles Gray as Blofeld. I think what a lot of people say is as well, I think that all all the different channels that we had on the Bond retrospective last year on my former channel, they all mentioned the same thing, that watching Diamonds Are Forever in isolation is a much better experience than watching them in sequential order. Because a lot of people, really 007, for example, they always mention when they were growing up, they didn't watch all the Bond films in sequence. They were kind of cherry picking and, darting around and picking and choosing all the Bond films. And, they grew up with Diamonds Forever and loved it and still love it, and champion that film, although it might not be one of the best, but they still really like it for a guilty pleasure film. Every single time I've watched the James Bond films, and, kind of unfortunately, it's going to be the case this time as well, watching them week to week at the cinema, Diamonds Are Forever is always following On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is, so against the grain, so subversive in a good way, not in a Last Jedi way, in an actually good way. It's dramatic, it's emotional, it's different, it's standalone. And obviously, because George Lazenby only did one film, it kind of adds to the unique quality of that film and how it is kind of like a diamond in the rough. You then follow that film up, which took so many chances to go back to a very safe, formulaic one, which is kind of terrible. And every time I've watched Diamonds Are Forever is watching it in sequence right after On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So that week gap, I am going to have to try and distance myself and kind of approach it that I'm watching this as a standalone piece and not a continuation from On Her Majesty's. So maybe, the part of the reason that I'm doing these reviews and love doing these reviews, and why I'm going to continue to do these reviews, especially on the James Bond films, is because watching these films on the big screen, I'm either getting a better experience and the film's improving in my mind and I find a new appreciation for it, or there might be things that I don't like and have kind of soured over time, or maybe I missed the first time and or maybe my opinions have stayed the same, and that's why I'm loving watching these Bond films again, albeit a lot sooner than I thought I would, because as I mentioned, I did these last year, and I didn't expect that I'd be going back to these quite so soon. But I'm not going to turn down watching them on the big screen. And actually, now that I'm out of the cinema for You Only Live Twice, I'm allowed to book 4 cinema tickets at one time. So after watching tonight's film, I'm now down to 3. So I have On Her Majesty's booked. I have Top Gun Maverick booked. I've got Diamonds Are Forever booked, which means I can go ahead and book the first Roger Moore Bond film, which will be Live and Let Die. We're at the Roger Moore film, so we've got that Roger Mooreston, and then we're getting to Dalton, and you know what that means. We're getting to License to Kill. That all roads lead to License to Kill. Everything. I'm just tunnel vision for License to Kill right now. It's actually playing at the Prince Charles Cinema in London on the 28th, and what sucks the most is I'm actually going to be in London on Saturday the 28th, but I'm going to the Royal Albert Hall to see the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring in concert, which I'm out of my mind for. And, I'd rather go and see that than License to Kill anyway. But it just sucks that it's happening on the same day, because would I have gone to see it? You know what? No, I probably would have waited, because I kind of want to watch them in sequence like I'm doing. But anyway, I'm rambling. I had a great time tonight, Live and Let Die, and I know that next week I'm going to have a fantastic time, albeit quite a very, very sad ending moment to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Really, really going to do the quick preamble. Once again, please do subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and live streams. I realize that I've got trailer reactions on there, and I've kind of been avoiding the trailer reactions as of late. It's just because I'm busy, guys. It's just because I'm busy. I do these videos when I can, but movie reviews you can absolutely guarantee. As I mentioned, next week, I'm going to bring it up right now. If you're loving the Bond content, I certainly am. On Her Majesty's Secret Service review is going to be next Tuesday, a week today. That's going to be the 24th of May at the slightly later time of 11:30 p.m. God knows what time I'm going to go on till with that one, because there's a lot to talk about with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but I am loving it. Of course, if you've just discovered this review right now and you've watched it, let me know what you think of You Only Live Twice. Is it one of your favorites? How does it stack up in the pantheon of James Bond films? And once more, follow me on Twitter. You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. I post all the times that I'm going live on there, and some of the little bits along the way, just to keep it fresh. Why not? I think that's everything. I think I'm all talked out now, guys. So I'm probably gonna get myself to bed. I'm probably gonna do a little bit of piano practice, maybe till like 1 a.m, and then I've got to be up for work in 7 hours. Lovely. But Cole, no worries. You're welcome. I'm going to keep doing these videos. Do check your Twitter, though. Check your Twitter. But yeah, thank you to everyone that's watched. Have a very good night, good morning, wherever you're watching this in the world. And I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.